ahead, Leah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Buzzing About Romance Happy Hour edition. We are the hosts of with the massive awkward pauses and awkward intros. So if we have that, don't be surprised.
Right? It's kind of our gig.
Tonight, Becky and I are here celebrating author Samanthe Beck and the release of Wet and Reckless. This is book 4 of the Private Pleasures series, and it is very good and very steamy.
Totally worth reading.
It is. Becky, you want to read Sam's intro or
I
bio?
do. Sure. Whatever. Awkward. We got it on. We're on brand tonight.
Brand.
Wine lover, sleep fanatic, and USA Today bestselling author of sexy contemporary romance novels, Samanthe Beck lives in Cincinnati, Ohio, with her long-suffering husband, Charles, and their turbo son, Hud. Throw in a furry ninja assassin named Gander and a few hundred Nerf blasters, one electric guitar with amp, and well, you get the picture. When not dreaming up fan your cheek ways to get your characters to happy ever after, she searches for the perfect cabernet to pair with an ASMR podcast. Words are already hard. This is going to be fun.
Words are very hard, very early tonight.
Right?
Okay. So the rules of the night, you can ask all the questions you want in the chat and we will do our best to answer them. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. In the description of the video are links to all the places you can connect. If you like, follow, and subscribe at the end of the night, two. Is it 2 lucky people?
No, it's
or multiple.
One person is going to win the 3 books and the box from us.
Okay.
So
1 lucky person
big grand
will win a
prize tonight.
swag-filled box from us. So let's kick things off in the traditional way. Sam, what are you drinking tonight?
Well, first of all, I'm drinking every night, but tonight is special because I'm drinking with you ladies. So thank you so much for having me tonight to drink a little Cabernet. It's called Troublemaker Cabernet, and I had a birthday last Friday.
And happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
It was number 2. So my wonderful neighbors, we call ourselves the smart, sexy ladies of Lawyers Point, threw a little party, and they one of them got me this bottle of wine. It's called Troublemaker, and I thought I'd drink that tonight and
That's
see if
exciting.
we can make some trouble.
I like that.
So I'm here to uncork it. I was hoping for a screw top, but they went classy on me.
They went fancy.
Yeah, so I gotta punch this in here. What about you, ladies?
I am drinking it's an old fashioned, I believe, made with Maker's Mark. Because, yes, Maker's Mark. We're huge whiskey bourbon drinkers in this house. And in honor of the fact that the books take place in small town Kentucky, I, of course, went with a Kentucky bourbon. So it's
we
yummy.
love you all the more for it.
I love Maker's Mark. So many fond memories.
Yeah.
Some, not sober memories.
Not so clear memories, but.
Leah, what are you drinking?
Well, I was in the process of making a tequila sunrise, but I didn't have any tequila, which I didn't realize until after I had the sunrise portion going. So I have rum. So
it's like a rum punch now.
Kind of,
a rum rise.
A rum rise.
I sent our drinks out. So one of the things that our podcast does is we have drunk book club once a month. And our Patreon members, they vote, nominate, and pick the book that we're reading. And I sent out a mocktail today that was just a sunrise. So it was a sunrise without the tequila.
I drink it.
I mean, me too.
It's orange juice, isn't it?
Orange juice, pineapple, and grenadine. And I think grenadine, if you put grenadine in it, it makes it fancy.
Yeah,
it does.
I would have to agree.
That's
I mean, mine's in a mug, so you don't see the fancy.
But...
Oh. Leah does best with cups with handles.
I do best with cups with no stems because I've proven that over the years.
So we have quite a few people here with us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're so happy to have you. Everyone is commenting on your lights. Sam, they love them. Sylvia says how much she loves your lights. Hey, Gretchen, thanks for joining us. And Susie's with us. Sylvia wants to know, do the books get steamier depending on how much wine you have?
Maybe. I think they're fairly steamy,
Fairly steamy.
You don't need the
like,
wine for the steam.
Yeah, I think even with like coffee or water, they're pretty steamy, but at least that's my goal. But underneath all that steam, I really hope that I'm bringing a lot of heart and a real love story that when you get to the end, you're just gonna feel like you rooted for these two people, and you have, you have their backs, and you have their best interests at heart, and you are so happy to see them get there happily ever after.
Well, we had read, so our connection to you came through your publisher, Entangled, Miss Ricky, who we adore and love. Big shout out to Ricky. She actually was the one that suggested that you would be, fun to have on with us. And we're like, okay. So Leah and I got the first, Leah and I got the first book, and I read it first. And Gretchen, you're going to want to start with the first book. I'm just telling you right now. They can be read as standalones.
That you should not.
But don't skip book one.
Don't.
Because I read book one and I immediately messaged Leah and I'm like, oh, hot damn, we're in for it now, sister. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, there is some sexy in this book.
So then Becky proceeded to buy me all 3 books so I could read them.
I'm like, yeah, we're reading these.
You're now officially my favorite people. But I love that you started with Tyler and Ellie, because that is indeed where I started too. Private Practice was the first book that I published. It was not the first book that I had written, but it was the first one that was ever bound to see the light of day. And I have a special place in my heart for those two, and they're crazy shenanigans.
I love them.
I love them. And it started out slightly unconventional because you weren't quite sure where it was going, and we are not going to spoil any of the books for anybody who hasn't read them yet. But
with a name like Foot Long, Longfoot, like it's going to be good.
Well, and he ends up a book boyfriend. He is super dreamy.
He
so
is.
But anyway, Leah, let's get to know Sam.
So we are going to kick things off. Make sure you're following Samantha on Amazon. Becky is going to put the Amazon link up in the chat. One of the nice things about Amazon, I'll say the spiel tonight, is if you follow your favorite authors on Amazon, you get tons of emails and reminders from them about when a book is ready for pre-order, if the pre-order is delayed, which we never want to happen, but it does. And then if they have a new book released, you get that your book is here. So it's amazing to follow authors on Amazon. So Sam, how did you end up becoming a writer? Have you written forever, or is it just something that you...
I always wanted to be a writer. I was an avid reader very early on, and kind of found romance sort of in that like middle school when when I should have been reading like A Wrinkle in Time, and I was like,
Same.
I'm going to read about people kissing each other and falling in love.
Jude Devereaux. Yeah.
whatever your entry, your gateway drug was, we all got there probably a little bit too early. So I kind of felt like this would be a great way to make a living, or to just a way to go through life, kind of thinking of characters and happy stories where everything ends well. So naturally, I became a lawyer because, that's like the same thing. So I was a lawyer for 13 years. And then my little guy came along, the guy with the Nerf blasters and the guitar with the amp. And that kind of allowed me a chance to segue into something different. And at that point, when you're changing diapers and wiping, spit up off your shoulder, you're like, oh, I could spend a lot of time thinking about sexy, romantic people and charged scenes, and you need an outlet at that point.
Mhm.
So I found one, and it took a little while. I think I started writing for real in about 2010, and I got the call from Entangled in 2012, and my first book was published in early 2013, which was Private Practice, as you mentioned. So yeah, I mean, even with what I thought I had, cleared the time and had the time and the space in my life to do it, it still took a while to actually like build up the chops and the skills and learn the craft. And it was funny because I thought just because I loved it and it was what I wanted to do, that I would just be really great at it. And after sending out a few manuscripts and having several very nice and very patient editors talk about what was not quite right, I realized, well, maybe being a writer is a little bit like being a lawyer. You're just going to have to go to school and learn how to do it. So if there are any aspiring writers in the audience, I would say, yeah, learn your craft, go to school, learn how to do it. Just like
Go back to school. We always giggle and laugh at the lawyer, because we have learned that there are a ton of lawyers writing romance.
So many.
Let me see here. Who is asking? Sandy asked, are there going to be more books in the Blue Lick series? So I'm assuming
she says, please say yes.
I assume she's meeting this series.
Yes. Yeah. They're all set in Blue Lick. Yeah, there is going to be at least one more. I think it's coming out in the summer, maybe around August. Don't quote me on that, because I just worked on blurbs and taglines today for this next story. But for any eagle-eyed readers of Wet and Reckless, I will be curious to know if anybody can guess who the next couple is.
Well, I think it's gotta be the owner of the diner. Begins with an A. It's right there.
Of Adelaide.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to confirm or deny, but I'm just saying that the couple is there.
The couple is there.
But I'll be interested to know how many people
guess it. Okay.
All right.
Could be right. I can neither confirm nor deny.
You can tell us after.
You can tell us after we go off live, and we won't spill the secrets. So Shrimpy881 says, who is your favorite hero and what is your favorite series? She is a lawyer near Blue Lick. She's a Kentucky girl.
There you go. Asking an author this is like asking a mother who their favorite child is. And I could actually answer the favorite child question easier because I only have one. But I think my favorite couple is always the one that I'm writing right now. So that is a couple that you guys are not going to meet for a while yet, because there's a lot more books in the future, I'm happy to say. But I can talk about what I really loved about Roxy and West, because I haven't forgotten them at all, obviously. What drew me to Roxy and West is that they are complete opposites. He is very strong and ethical, and he's a little bit jaded, but he is, to quote that Gabby Barrett song, he's one of the good guys, he's a white hat. And Roxy, on the other hand, she has a heart of gold. She is a sweet spirit, but she is just, she is reckless. She is always ending up on kind of the wrong side of West thin blue line. And I just loved, I wouldn't even call it an enemies to lovers story, although maybe that trope applies, but they're just two people approaching life from such different directions, and yet they just find themselves just drawing closer and closer and closer. And obviously there's the physical aspect, but it's more than that. It's that they're like puzzle pieces, and they see in the other person something that's going to fit with them and complete them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just enjoyed bringing them together so much.
It almost reads as like a grumpy sunshine type trope. Wes, he isn't really grumpy, but he's very stoic. He's just very determined. He's a rule follower, and she's a free spirit. You think he's
unapologetic?
But she's a free spirit. But I feel like she is kind of searching for her place. She wants roots, even though, she's been kind of the tumbleweed rolling type mentality because of how her parents raised her. She really is looking for that lasting attachment. And so you instantly, I think, like the mom in me wanted to hug her and be like, oh, sweetie, we got this.
Yeah, she definitely seemed a little bit lost, like, because she was so like her and her parents, they were together all the time. Like they did everything together. They traveled together, and then they weren't there anymore. And like, she wasn't quite sure who to be without them almost.
Yeah, no, I felt the same way. I mean, I wanted to hug Roxy too, even though I was dreaming up all these difficult situations to put her in after giving her a difficult backstory. But I found both of the characters extremely lovable, and I had a lot of fun taking these opposites and kind of almost like a Rubik's Cube, just turning them and twisting them and making them fit together. And I thought, their struggle, I mean, was a little bit different than, say, Tyler and Ellie. Their struggle was a little bit, it was situational, and also a little bit more the way they saw themselves. And I really enjoyed, as a writer, making them fit together, starting with these two opposite kind of blocks and chipping away at them and making them fit together in a way that I hope when people read it, it feels legitimate and real and satisfying.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely brought out, like I said, West is a little bit rigid, and he's very serious, and Roxy like pulled out like the reckless in him, like, and he was able to kind of settle her in a way.
So Michael's asking, is there one character you most relate to?
Again, that's like, who's your favorite kid? I think that I mean, all of these characters are born from me in some way, although, without paying royalties to anybody else, there's a lot of all y'all in these characters too. I mean, I grab them from the world, but yeah, I think there's aspects of every single one of my characters that I relate to. I think in my own little Sybil mind, I am, I've found this perfect outlet to be a, hot 27-year-old hard-bodied cop, and also be a shy, insecure, bookish doctor, or, like all of these things that I actually just can't be in my real life. But through the magic of fiction, I can embody all of these people, and they're all special to me because they're all affording me an opportunity that I never really get otherwise.
Yeah. You do write very dynamic characters. I will say that. Each character has unique traits that are all of their own. Even the supporting characters, you feel drawn in by the supporting characters.
The village, take the village.
Yeah. And I think that, so, someone would say, oh, do you love small town romance? I read it. It's not necessarily my go-to. I kind of like the anonymity of large cities and that kind of feel. However, you write a small town that pulls you in. You can't wait to visit back to this town and to get small glimpses of the different chaoticness within the town, the dynamics of its citizens. And, you know, there's a scene in this book where they talk about the trash cans, the older gentleman in the town who constantly calls that his trash cans have been vandalized. Really, he's an old guy that's all on his own and needs somebody to take his trash to the curb. You know, and Wes, he knows that. He knows that that's why he's going there.
But he still does it because he wants to do it.
So you create dynamic characters. So I think it would be very hard to pick a favorite.
Well, thank you. And as much as I'm glad that people are enjoying the small town of Blue Lick, Kentucky, it is a fictional small town, but my extended family is from a small town in northern Kentucky, and I think they provided the foundation for Blue Lick, which is still a fictional town and much smaller. But I hope that it feels a little bit more real because I spent time in that region. I've spent time happily and lovingly in that region, and I want to portray it that way in the stories.
I love the little small town. Like I grew up in I wouldn't even call where I grew up a small town. It was a field. I grew up in a field, but like I grew up in small town areas. So like I can relate to small town areas. And I really like Blue Lick is one of those places that I would love to visit. Like I would love to become part of Blue Lick.
So there's a couple of questions in here for new readers of your books. Is there a book that you would recommend them to start with?
Really I try to write the books so you can dive in anywhere, even if you picked up like the third book in a series, that you would read it and feel very full and satisfied and not dumped in the middle of a action movie halfway through. But but I would say start, if you can, with the first book in any of the series. I personally am partial to starting with Private Practice because that was the first book I wrote. So
that was your debut novel?
That was my debut novel. So
it does not read like a debut novel.
I never would have guessed that was your debut. Because
I mean, there's like 9 manuscripts under the bed that will never see the light of day. But
still, even for your first published novel, that does not read like a debut novel. And Leah and somebody said to us earlier this week, they're like, I never knew there were people that read like 500 books a year. And Leah and I are like, doesn't everyone read like 500 books a year? Because
no, she said 300, and I said that's a slow year.
That's a slow year. I thought she said 500.
No, she said 3.
I used to be one of those people. I really was. Well, like I was a lawyer, and I needed a happy ever after. I needed a happy ending in my life because most of what was happening was not that happy. But now that I'm writing, I can't read quite as much, but I totally understand. I mean, I am an avid fan of really, I mean, the romance genre for sure, but I read a lot of other genres too. I don't like test me on literary fiction or anything, but I love a lot of different genres. I love to lose myself in a story, and again, like, don't test me on pop culture and television, because I would rather pick up a book than watch TV.
Let's see here.
I'm right there with you.
So in the chat, I am putting the link to join Sam's newsletter. If you want to know what books are coming next and all the fun things she has on the horizon, you should go ahead and subscribe to her newsletter.
Special giveaways in that newsletter too. So
Okay, people, especially our little group, the Hive, we know how much y'all love some giveaways. So sign up for Sam's newsletter.
Who doesn't love a free book, a little swag?
So Gretchen is asking, and Susie is asking, because these are our people. They're like, what is your favorite trope to write? And then Susie wants to know, is there a trope you'll never write? It's like they've read our script before, Leah.
It is. Well, because those are the questions we usually ask, but we just jumped right into everything tonight.
I know.
Which is okay.
So is there a favorite trope?
I don't know about favorite. It would be easier for me to answer the last question first, which is a trope I would never write. And I don't want to say, like, I'll never say never, but best friends to lovers is a hard one for me to wrap my head around. Because
it's the worst.
Like, just be lovers then.
Right.
Well, because I think most people that have a really good relationship are probably best friends anyway. So and all of that said, I've read some great ones. But for me, I don't feel like I could parse those emotions out realistically enough.
You found your soul sister right there.
I did.
To make it a real trope.
Regular listeners of our podcast will know that I do not care for best friends to lovers or long-term friends to lovers. And I'm not talking like where they were new of each other in high school and then moved away and then something has brought them back together. That's not what I'm talking about.
No.
No, I'm talking about someone that's a constant in your life, that you have done things together for 10, 15, 7 years. And there was never a moment, there was never a touch that you were like, oh yeah, I'm attracted to this. Like in all of those years, there was never anything, because at that point it starts to feel slightly incestual.
Yeah.
And that's all I got to say about it.
And my tack onto that would be, if it doesn't go, if you truly were not bonding as brother and sister, then how it seems to play out for me in reading is that she always had a little bit of a crush on him, and he was always a little bit too busy being the captain of the football team and having a fulsome dating and love life, that he just never really looked at her in that way. And I'm like, well, that's not best friends. That's just unrequited love.
Right. Or missed connections. We recently read a book where it was kind of a second chance, but during, say, their college years that they were friends, they never were not with someone else. So there was never really this opportunity that they connected. And when they did connect the first time, life got in the way and it never went farther than just the one night. Okay, that makes sense, because now they've reconnected 10 years later and there's, it's like almost starting over.
Mutual attraction.
Right.
But with that one too, though, like they both had feelings, and like, because it was dual person first point of view, and like she had feelings for him, he had feelings for her, but anytime he wanted to do something, she was with somebody else. So it was like they both recognized it, but it was bad timing all around.
A little bit of a Harry Met Sally.
Yeah. Little bit.
Yes. Okay, let me see. Did I miss any other questions? I didn't miss any on us. So Leah, you can go back to our script and ask a question. I am going to put Sam's BookBub link in in the chat. If you aren't following her on BookBub, give her a follow. That is helpful to you. Again, you get notified when books go live and if they have sales. It also helps the author be part of different promotional opportunities on BookBub. So give your authors some love and follow them on BookBub. That was a lot for me.
It was a lot. So what was your, like, since you were a reader of romance, but what was your last 5-star read? Or, I mean, you don't have, if you don't, we're not fans of the 5-star. Is there a book that you just absolutely loved?
I can tell you, I just sent an email to the author literally yesterday It was Robin DeHart, and she writes historicals, which I don't typically read, but
Okay.
like everybody else, I got sucked into Bridgerton, and then I saw her beautiful cover in a newsletter, and I was like, oh, it's just so pretty. I gotta buy it. And I did, and I read it, and I think it's called The Virgin and the Viscount, but anyways, Robin DeHart's latest. And it was so adorable and moving and sexy and cute. And I just literally emailed her today to tell her that I had been meaning to send her an email for weeks because I read it like all in one day. I couldn't put it down. And I just wanted to thank her for the book Hangover. So, but and that she was new to, like, I don't know that I'd read her before. I think she writes contemporaries too, but I hadn't read a historicals before. So she was literally new to me. And yeah, check her out because
It's always fun to find new authors. Like, I mean, we found you, and now I've read like your entire back catalog. So it's like, okay.
It's wonderful and terrible all at the same time.
We often get,
you could only have 2 other books published. That would be
we often get fussed out about destroying TBRs, and part of you wants to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. But on the other hand, I want to be like, yes. Yes.
Like our goal in life. So Kelly wants to know, what was the first romance novel you read, or the most influential?
The first, I don't know. I mean, I wish I could tell you, but
yeah, I don't know either. It was some Harlequin book for me. So.
Blurry stacks of a library somewhere when I was, too young to be reading those books. But I think, the most influential, probably, I hate to say it, but Nora Roberts.
Nothing
that's
wrong.
Fair.
She's so
Nothing
iconic,
wrong with Nora.
but I mean, those are the early books that I read from her really do still stand out in my mind. I think I read a book called Hot Rocks that she wrote many years ago. And I actually think I read it in college, and my boyfriend's mom gave it to me. And I just thought it was so, it was just, it was not a Harlequin, it was, it had jewel thieves, and it was exciting. It was kind of a thriller, and but the romance was very front and center. I should go read it tomorrow and see if I still love it as much, and I know that I will, because it was just a really well written, well crafted story that stuck with me. And keep in mind, I was an English major in college, so I was reading a lot of supposed classics, and honestly, all of that was coming at me like water through a fire hose. I couldn't really hold on to any of it. But at that same time, I read Hot Rocks, and I'm like, damn, that was a good book. Chaucer,
right. I recently reread a Nora Roberts, an older one that I had read years ago. It was like Blue Smoke or something like that, and it holds up. Yeah. It holds up.
You have to forgive them not sending texts or
right.
Whatever.
But you know what? Every once in a while we get a contemporary romance where a cell phone isn't such a big piece in the story. I mean, they might have a phone on them, but there's not text messages in the story and such. And I don't mind that. I like when a lot of the communication is a little more personal, phone calls and stuff like that. But Nora, she's the queen for a reason. So
I definitely agree.
Okay, so we have, let me see, what's the next question here? For your audiobooks, do you get input on who is the reader?
It depends on the company that is producing the audiobook. But generally, no, not a tremendous amount.
Yeah.
Nobody's ask me to read for for any of my books. I don't understand.
They didn't want you to do your own books?
I would love to do it. I can drop my voice down and do it too. But no, that offer hasn't come in yet. I'm still waiting.
So the next question is, will the book Emergency Attraction ever be available on Audible?
I don't know. I really don't.
That all comes down to publishing rights and
exactly. I publish through a publisher. I'm not self-published, so I don't control that piece of it. I hope so. That would be great.
Question for Ricky.
I love Emergency Attraction. That is
you have to ask Liz.
Oh, yeah.
That's Liz.
Like Liz, the people want to know.
We had Liz on. We did an episode in February, The State of Romance, where we kind of just talked about like what do we think romance is going to look like for the rest of this year? Will we see the pandemic in romance coming forward? And so Liz joined us, and then we had the director of the Naughty Books documentary, which was a documentary about self-published romances. And a couple of different authors and a marketing person also came on and joined us. And so Liz will send me little messages here and there, but I am not asking her if your book is getting an audio book.
I don't. I'm not even asking her that.
I was going to say, like, let's see here. Do you have a favorite romance subgenre you like to read?
Well,
are you like a romantic suspense or just rom-com?
I kind of dig them all. Like my main reads are generally contemporary romance, much like what I write. But then every once in a while I'll deviate and do like Robin DeHart historical, and I'll be like, this is so good. Why don't I read more of this? And then I'll read a romantic suspense that's really tight and taut and so good, and I'll be like, oh my God, why don't I read this? And then I'll read like a balls out erotica, and I'll think, oh, why don't I read this all the time? I mean, I never leave my house, but why don't I?
Are we supposed to leave our house?
Maybe not. We're not, maybe, although that's changing now.
I know. I also live in Ohio, Sam, so
okay.
I had some.
Are you 513? Happy 513 day.
No, I am 419.
Oh,
I am 419.
Well, then your day is already gone.
My day is already gone. Yep, I'm up in the northwest corner of this lovely state.
Are you near Cedar Point?
I'm south of Toledo on 75, so I'm about 2.5 hours north of you in Findlay is where I am.
I'm a transplant from Cincinnati. I've been in Southern California for a long time, so I'm fairly new to Cincinnati. But I kind of know where Dayton is. I kind of know where the Great Lakes are.
Yeah. I always say I'm like an hour from everything, but 2 hours from Cleveland.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's not bad. But yesterday, just funny laugh about. Did you see this, Leah? For adults that are vaccinated, you get a chance to win $1 million from the Ohio lottery.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, Governor DeWine, and if you are between the ages of 12 and 18 and get vaccinated, you have a chance to win a 4-year college education to any state school.
That would be nice.
Wow.
So it's kind of
maybe
funny.
We'll use my grandma's old address. It's still in the house. We can be Ohio transplants for a little bit.
I have a 12-year-old in Ohio who is yet to be vaccinated, and he's not super excited about the prospect, but maybe winning a college education would.
Because college ain't cheap.
I signed my girl child up for her, so next week. Okay, so let's see here. Everybody's chatting so fast here. Do you have a favorite narrator for your books?
I don't.
Or do you have a favorite audio narrator?
In general?
I've listened to a few of the book. I have a few of the books, and I think that they've always done a good job of fitting the voices to the characters. But it would be great if I could take people that I know from my life and put them in these characters, which I'm like, for anybody that's listening that I know from my life, is not that I picture anybody specifically when I write these characters, but I have a lot of, especially for the Blue Lick series, I have a lot of like nice sort of Kentucky drawls in my circle of friends, and it would be great to cast some of the people I know in these roles.
So,
Not good, I'm sure.
but you know what though? So I will listen to audiobooks. Leah is not a huge audiobook person because she can read faster than she listens, but we're working on some backlogs and I'm doing some listenings of books that I've already read. And so sometimes in a audio narrator doesn't exactly sound exactly like I have them in my head. And I saw this on TikTok because stupid TikTok. People,
Please, how can we resist?
Right? I guess there are people who do not picture a scene when they read. Like they don't visualize it in their head, that they just read the words on the page. And
what's the point of reading the book then?
Right. They don't actually, and I didn't realize that not everyone visualizes the scene. Like I can tell you right now that with West and Roxy, I know what the interior of his truck looks like. I know what the apartment and what the house looks like and the basement and, entering in through
and
the
that laundry
side
room.
and that laundry room.
That's important.
It's very important.
Laundry has never been so important.
Right. So important. That scene with the first night, and I'm not spoiling anything because that is early in the book, but when she's like, oh, wait, I need to go through your laundry. And she pulls out the underwear, puts it on right in front of him.
She's bold.
That was fantastic.
Because she yells at him to stop too.
But sometimes audio narrators don't sound like I imagine.
I think I'm a little bit more in your camp too. It's hard to be objective about my own books. I don't I have very definite ideas in my head, but I have to let those go because I transmit them through the writing as much as I can, but then I have to let them go because it's not my call. But I can definitely feel that way about other books and other formats where I'm like, no, that's just not, we've all had a book that we love made into a movie or a show and been like, that's not how I pictured it. This is really changing it for me. And not in a way.
Why did they ruin my book?
Yeah. I should be so lucky to ever be able to say, oh, that movie wasn't done the way I wanted it to be done. But I have been in the fan, in the fandom world, I have definitely been on that side of things and been like, oh, that casting is wrong. That ruins it for me. I just would have done it differently. But as a writer, I try to actually sometimes when I'm writing, try to shy away from even getting too deep into the physical descriptions of a character, just because I don't want to alienate anyone, especially the heroes. Some people like a lot of body hair. Some people don't like a lot of body hair. Some people like, blondes or brunettes or, I don't want to turn anybody off over just a physical aspect of my hero. But on the other hand, I have in my head a very definite idea of what this guy looks like. So I don't know, you walk a fine line. You don't want to ruin it for anybody.
So Alyssa would like to know, can you tell us how you ended up in California?
Well, Alyssa, hi. I'm not in California. Actually, I ended up in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is a good place for us right now. But I spent, from the time I was 13 till the time I was in, in Southern California. And that was basically because my parents moved there, and I love Southern California very much. And
Yeah.
I miss it very much. But Cincinnati, Ohio is the right place for us to be right now.
It's not a bad place to be. Okay, so you guys are
It's
missing all the fun.
It's a wonderful place. If it weren't for the weather, I'm like
And you don't even have it that bad. You guys, you get snow, but you don't get as bad as we get up here.
It's been weird lately. Like it's cold and then hot because I'm just in Pennsylvania, so I'm just over the border from you guys.
Exactly.
So yeah, our weather's been insane lately.
It's been a chilly spring, I think, but
it has.
It has. I'm ready for the warm up. Okay, Leah, you're missing all of this.
Oh no, I'm seeing all of it. I like
Shrimpy 881 and I are going back and forth about Jude Devereaux. So just so you know, Jude Devereaux, she went to college in Kentucky. She went to Murray State University, and my mother and she went to college together. So we're like bonding over the love of Jude Devereaux, because the question was, do you
reread
your favorite books? Are you a rereader of your books? Or not like specifically your books, but in books of general, do you go back and reread books?
I'm a total rereader of books. Absolutely. I have my favorites on my digital shelf that I go back and reread. And again, Nora holds a special spot there. Jill Shalvis as well. And then some people that I am lucky enough to be personal friends with. I reread Sandy Manning. Hasten Manning she's published Hasten Manning, and Robin Beelman. I reread Maggie Kelly. But yeah, I'm a total rereader, and I think part of it is, because I guess there's a contingency of people out there that would be like, why would you reread a book? Once you read it, you're done. You know what happens. But it's when you read it the first time, sometimes it's so good that you read it fast because you need to know what happens. And then you need to reread it to take it slower. Now that the urgency is gone, you can take it slower. You can appreciate
the little things that you missed.
All of the nuances, everything you missed, exactly. And then a couple years later, you might reread it just to see how it holds up and kind of test you as a person, kind of test yourself and that story based on where you are now. And, total win when you reread that 5 years later and it still works for you, even though you might be in a completely different place in your life. And maybe even on a different kind of reading jag altogether, but.
Right. Well, and I think rereading, it's like comfort. It's like putting on the worn sweatshirt and the baggy yoga pants and having, just a day on the couch. When you reread, there's comfort because, the characters. Earlier this year, I went through a bit of a reading slump where I wasn't connecting with any books, and some of the books were just really causing me a lot of heartache. And it was early in the year, and I'm sure it had everything to do with some pandemic fatigue. I don't think it was necessarily anyone's fault. And I'm not saying, bad authors or anything like that. I just was having a hard time connecting to books. And I went back and I reread a few favorites and some tried and true that I know where that happily ever after is going to be. I know, the character development, and it was good. And actually this week I've re-listened to 2 books that I had read a while ago in prep for some upcoming episodes. And it's been phenomenal because, phenomenal for me, not for Leah, because she ended up adding 25 books to her TBR list. But they were one I had read.
Right. Well, and that Becky and we both went through that book slump, and I reread 2 different series because I needed something that I knew it was good. I knew going into it, I will be satisfied at the end of this book, because I read 3 or 4. I do a lot of arcs. And so I had read 3 or 4 arcs, and I was disappointed. And I was like, I just need something that like, I know it's good. I know it's going to give me that happily ever after. I know it's going to give me that like that, they're so happy feeling. Like, so I reread. Well, I read a lot, but
Yeah.
so I reread a decent amount throughout the year too.
Well,
So-
one of the definite perks of being an author is that you get a lot of marks too. And sometimes they're from your close author friends that you know it's going to work for you because you know them, you know their personalities, but you get a lot of marks, just sort of kind of through trading and connections and whatever. And I do think like if I go through 2 or 3 and it doesn't hook for me, I know it's me. Like if one doesn't hook me in, and I'm not an English major when I read, I'm not a critical reader, I'm just ready to get soaked up into lollipop land and just enjoy myself. But if one doesn't click, okay, fine. But if the second and the third one doesn't click, it's me. It's me. I need to
Reset yourself
in me, because it's not that there's many bad stories out there in the world. There just aren't. They don't get to that level without being good. And sometimes you just need to go back to what will kind of reset your joy in the process.
Yeah. Yep. So before we go to the next question, I'm going to put our Patreon link in the chat. So Bookcase and Coffee and Buzzing About Romance is part of our, we're fully supported by Patreon. That's how we pay for the podcast, and we're able to bring you events like these happy hour lives. As of right now, we've hit 30 Patreons, but we have our next goal at 50. And so for right now, the podcast Patreon is just covering our expenses. Leah and I do all the other stuff as part of our passion. It's just the expense of hosting a podcast, which when I first started, I thought, oh, this is really cheap. And then my husband showed me, not so cheap.
Oh.
He's like, budgets.
Are fun.
Budgets. I'm like, it's a passion project. And he's like, budgets. So if you are enjoying tonight, please consider joining us over on Patreon. We do a lot of fun things, like we have our reading challenge check-ins, and each month we have Drunk Book Club, and we're getting ready to launch our summer reading challenge bingo.
We are.
With amazing prizes. We have books and t-shirts and romance totes and all sorts of good stuff up for grabs. So consider joining us over there. Okay, so what's next, Leah?
So Gretchen would like to know, excuse me, do your family members read your steamy books? And how is that if they do?
I think some of them do. In fact, I know some of them do. Some of my sisters-in-laws are kind enough to read the books and enjoy them and talk about how much they've enjoyed them, and I love them all the more for it. But in general, in my personal experience, the less you know me personally, the better this all works out. With some notable exceptions, but just because of the heat level in my books, I feel like
it's awkward.
Yeah, not for me necessarily, but I do think for some people, some of my family members that read my books, they're like, oh, that's definitely you.
That's interesting.
Well, and your stories are pretty sexy.
What's that?
Your stories are pretty sexy.
Right. Go ahead.
There's a great scene in Private Practice where Ellie walks in on somebody, and I'm like, whoa, okay.
But then we had to wait for the next book to get that.
Yeah,
but it's not like Ellie was innocent. She was doing her things in the office too.
Yeah, no, it's true, but yeah, no, Melody was, he was like lighting her fire. Um, and yeah, as awkward as that was for Ellie, I think that that's kind of how it is sometimes with, people who know you and, interact with you on a daily basis. Um, I- it's, it is honestly not awkward for me, but I do think that, um, coming in from the outside, not knowing me personally, maybe makes it better. It's a better experience.
They're pretty fantastic, and I was excited to kind of get to know you. So,
Well, thank you.
everybody
So
read the books. They're really great.
What's coming up next?
Well, next is another book set in Blue Lake, Kentucky. It's called Undercover Engagement. And I can't say much more because I still want people to guess the couple.
Oh, now I know. Because now
Oh.
you said the title. Now I got it. Just read the book, people, and you'll figure it out.
And it is fun. I had such fun writing this book. If there were favorite tropes, there was that question of what tropes do you love and what trope would you not want to write. This one is basically enemies to lovers, and I love to read that trope, and I love to watch movies in that trope. Like it is just so fun for me, despite how it sounds very fraught. But it's I love it when it's fun, and this one is fun, and I just enjoyed writing it and enjoyed drawing these two characters together and honestly pushing them together because they didn't want to be together. But yeah, it was great fun, and I can't wait for other people to be able to read it.
Yeah, Kim says that's the couple I was hoping the next book would feature. So she knows.
Got it right, Kim.
There's lots of excitement in the chat for Undercover. So
there is a lot of excitement here on the screen.
Right? So as we're getting to the end of our hour here, if you are still hanging out with us, go ahead and give us a hey in the chat so we know you're here and we can enter you in to win our swag. Sam has a signed copy of the first 3 books.
Yes,
in the series. I'm so stinking jealous. And I have bath fizzers, a bookworm candle, of course, stickers, because we all know how I feel about
Becky loves the stickers.
And I have a bee book journal up for grabs this evening to go along with the books. So
that's
give
beautiful.
us.
I'm gonna talk so I can make sure that the books go on the screen too.
I just love those covers too.
I'm so jealous of those books.
I know.
I loved Private Practice. I need to reread it. You know what, Heather? It is so good. I completely agree with you. It's definitely one to reread. So we have Gretchen. There's so many people here. I'm so excited. It's so nice to see so many people here. So thank you, everyone.
Like here she is with that link again. She's
no, that's awesome.
That's great. I mean, for us, we wish more authors would listen to us when we're like, hey, seriously, it matters. But it's okay. If you guys are missing this or you know somebody who will enjoy it, you can rewatch it forever on the YouTube. So,
that's frightening.
That's frightening. Hey, it'll help you. It creates searchability. So, and Sandy, gosh, there's so many people. This is so exciting. We will be back here with actually one of your publishing company friends, Mariah Anchorman, and the Wedding Dilemma will be joining us on Tuesday next week to talk about her latest release. So if you had a good time tonight, come back and hang out with us again on Tuesday night, same time, same bat channel, right?
Well,
Sounds great.
Okay,
Thank
so
you for having me.
okay, well, wait 1
Are
second.
you
We got to
sure
go
you
one.
got everybody? People are still like popping up.
I know, right? So let's ask a question. Do you like writing in small town? So is that kind of where your heart is drawn to?
I have loved writing in small town, but I also I am a big city girl, LA, Cincinnati. So I like writing big cities too. But I think where I'm going next is also a small town, just somewhere very north of Kentucky.
Very north.
Very, very north of Kentucky. But no, I like whatever setting fits the story best.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, your small town is so quaint. I'm excited to see what you do next. So I
Thank
do
you.
like Blue Lick though, so you can stay there as far as I'm concerned for forever. Okay, so we have 18 people that have entered. Go ahead and Sam, give me a number between 1 and 18.
9.
Elise, Lisa, you are the winner of our box and our book swag. You can email me at info@bookcaseandcoffee.com with your address, and we will get this stuff out to you. And then, Sam, what I'll do is once they email me, I will email you their address so that you can send out your books. So, once again, thank you everyone for joining us.
Thank you so much. And thank
was
you,
such a
Sam,
great
for
night.
coming on and talking to us about Wet and Reckless.
Thank you for having me. It was a joy.
Anytime. We would love to have you back. So thanks, everyone. And we will see you next time here on Buzzing About Romance. Happy reading, everyone.
Happy reading.